Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but the thing I wanted to start out talking with you about is you recently published the book The Power of HR.
Yes.
And I wanted to get the backstory. So for those of you who don't know you, you started your career as a practitioner. You're in the analyst space now, also an author, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Um, Tell us about the book. Tell us about why it's important now, and what motivated you to write it, and how it's been received.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the reception.
Well, I want to take a little detour here for a second because you mentioned sports medicine,
Mhm.
and here I was thinking, I thought you were in a band, and you even managed a band. Can you talk about that and how that led you to be in HR and to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I've been playing bass guitar since middle school. One of the creative things that we're doing is I've launched a new podcast and launching a community around it. Uh,
Well, what's the name of it, or is it a reveal?
yeah, this is a reveal. It's gonna be Joey's HR Lounge.
Welcome to Directionally Correct, a people analytics podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, Joey Price, CEO of Jumpstart HR, analyst at Aspect 43, and author of The Power of HR. Hey, Directionally Correct fans, this podcast is dedicated to you to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics, workforce planning, talent intelligence, behavioral science, and understand the impacts of AI in the workplace. If you're looking to stay connected to the podcast, make sure to subscribe to Directionally Correct Substack newsletter, where you can read Cole's articles or watch the video of the podcast. You can also see video on Spotify or YouTube, or listen to the podcast on your app of choice. Feel free to check out Cole's new book, People Analytics, and everything else that's going on at colenapper.com. As always, all opinions are our own, and thanks for being a listener. Joey Price, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Cole, man, thanks for having me.
You have been one of my favorite people to meet over the last year or so. Just infectious positivity, relentless effort, and uneasy brilliance. So,
Uh,
thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
hey, thank you so much, and I hope that translates well to your audience today. If not, I'm in big trouble.
Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but the thing I wanted to start out talking with you about is you recently published the book The Power of HR.
Yes.
And I wanted to get the backstory. So for those of you who don't know you, you started your career as a practitioner. You're in the analyst space now, also an author, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Tell us about the book. Tell us about why it's important now, and what motivated you to write it, and how it's been received.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the reception. It's been really amazing to see and feel the words that you've put on paper and the way that it landed in people's lives. You know, all the way from the pre-published copy and getting it into the hands of some leaders that I admire, and them writing nice things about it without you using ChatGPT. uh, and just to meet different HR professionals when I travel, and they say, "Hey, I've got a copy of your book." That's the most rewarding part for me of this whole process, is that like what I have to say about the HR field makes a difference. It has meaning in folks' lives. Why did I write the book? I wrote it because I wanted to have a positive impact on our field in a way that helps level up the modern day professionals' stature in an organization. Cole, you and I, we are in this analyst space and see the technology and know that for every technology that makes life more efficient or work more efficient, the professionals who deploy those technologies have to level up their ability to be strategic, level up their ability to understand technology's role in business outcomes and their role in business outcomes. And so the power of HR, if I had to define it in a sentence, is, you know, uh, the 5 keys to inspire HR leaders to have confidence, wisdom, and strategy, no matter what situation is presented to them at work.
So what are those 5 keys?
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you get the book. I'm gonna say get the book. But
Do you
no,
have like one of them? Maybe first taste is free. What's one key that they could take away?
yeah, I'll give a few. I'll give a few. So,
Okay.
the first one is own your expertise, right?
Okay.
So, that's both understanding the role that HR plays within a business function, understanding HR's role within your industry, and as much as it's about knowing what you know, it's being clear about areas that are outside of your zone of brilliance or your zone of expertise, and not being afraid to invite collaborative partners into decision making processes. So, for example, if you are an HR professional and you are tasked with improving the employer brand, maybe you're not a marketing person, and so it makes sense to tap into some of the partners that you have in the marketing department. If you are undergoing audits, maybe it makes sense to tap into some of the financial professionals or the technology professionals that you have in your organization for the purpose of getting things accomplished. So, own your expertise is one. The second one, which I think is my personal favorite, is to be part coach, part cheerleader. And
Oh.
this value kind of stems from uh, my backstory. Before I got into the field of HR, I thought I was going to be in sports medicine and travel the world and help teams win trophies and championships. But being part coach, part cheerleader means, like, as an HR professional, whether you are in house or a consultant, you have a duty to tell the truth, and you have a duty to set the organization up for success. Now, the way that you deliver that information matters, so much so that it really is the differentiation between, um, does the CEO or the employee feel like they can trust you, or do they feel like you are the bad cop or the compliance police or the no, you can't do that kind of person? And so that's where you marry part coach, part cheerleader, as in, know your role, know how to drive positive change, set the organization up for that positive change. But when you have to deliver information, do so in a way that's encouraging and enthusiastic and inspires confidence and excitement. So I'll give those two, Cole, and then the rest
Yeah.
you can find in the book.
No, that's perfect. Well, I want to take a little detour here for a second because you mentioned sports medicine,
Mhm.
and here I was thinking, I thought you were in a band, and you even managed a band. Can you talk about that and how that led you to be in HR and to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I've been playing bass guitar since middle school. Um, my mom wanted to keep my brother and I out of trouble, and she figured one of the ways that she could do that is give us instruments that require practice. And I was a church kid, so that meant I was always at church on Sundays. And even back then, I was analytical. I said, "What instrument do I not see in the band? Because I want to play the instrument where I don't have to wait my turn. I want to get the instrument and play it." And I never saw anyone playing bass guitar, so that was the origin story of me playing bass. But over the years, I got progressively good, progressively interested. And have traveled the world playing bass guitar. Played at the Kennedy Center. Have done a demo for my band in college. We did a demo in Nashville, Tennessee, and I approach business similar to being in the band and managing the band, in that, whatever goal we're trying to accomplish, a, let's have fun while we're trying to do it, but b, recognizing the creative strengths and limitations of members within our team. And I'm sure you could, riff off of it from a people analytics standpoint about understanding capacity and potential for growth. But the lessons that I've learned being in my band for many, many years taught me just, rehearsal was incredibly disciplined. So we would start just, going over our set, but rehearsal didn't finish when we ended a song. Rehearsals finished when we knew we couldn't get that song wrong. And
Oh, there you
I
go.
just brought that level of passion and commitment to getting things right. Not in a perfectionist standpoint, but
Mhm.
like just making sure a certain level of excellence. And I try to inspire that with my team. I try to attract team members who also carry that commitment to excellence. And yeah, like I said, just have fun at what we're doing.
I love that point about practicing till you can't get it wrong.
Mhm.
I've always told people it related to imposter syndrome. So a lot of people say they feel like imposters, and I said, when you'll never feel like an imposter is if you've done something so many times that you're bored by it. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of to get the reps in, you know? And so if you're like, I come from people analytics, I'm always talking to analysts who are analyzing data and, having to present it out the results. I'm like, if you've analyzed the data so backwards and forwards that you're bored by it,
Mhm.
now you're ready to present to the executives and you will not feel like an imposter because you are the world expert on that.
Right.
And so I think I love that kind of that notion behind it. But maybe we come back to the book for a minute. Um, you know, and one of the beautiful things about writing a book, so I've recently published one, is there's this like really nice community of authors that I didn't know existed, and they're just super, supportive and just like, and so I'm loving being a part of it. But like, what did you go through when writing the book, and what was it like when it came out?
Man, writing the book was the classic hero's journey of, uh, boy sees mountain, boy must slay dragon to reach mountaintop.
Yeah.
Boy meets wizard who helps guide through the journey. Um, but writing the book wasn't the start of the journey. It was actually pitching the book. Pitching the book
Oh.
idea was the start of the journey, and I hired a coach. He was a really great coach. Helped me understand book proposals in a way that made me realize that proposing a book is just like pitching a business to an investor because they're very similar. If you're going to go the traditional publishing route and you want to have someone co-invest in your future, you've got to show them that you understand your subject matter, that you're the right person to deliver the message, and that you have the commitment to see this through to the end. And so, to me, that was the most strenuous process. But to your point about like practicing until you can't get it wrong when you're presenting to an executive board, having to refine my proposal and having it be rejected by places where I thought it would end up, but ultimately landing in a really great home that was perfect for the goals of my book. It was very rewarding. So pitching was the hard part. Next came acceptance and writing. So the writing, I believe I
Mhm.
started writing the book in January of 24, and then I had to submit my manuscript by July of 24. So I had like 7 months to write the book,
Yeah.
and it was it was interesting, trying to write a book while run a business, while be a dad, while be a husband, while be a pet dad. A lot of competing priorities. So part of writing the book was, stealing away moments when I can to organize the sections of my book and confirm interviews of subject matter experts that I wanted to add in the book, and like filing away documents that I would want to reference. But the bulk of the writing actually happened when I tell my wife and say, "Hey, I need 2 days to go away and just work on the book from sun up to sundown." and then I'll come back and I won't be as stressed out because I've advanced my word count goal. So I did quite a bit of those through that process. And what it taught me was, you can juggle many different priorities as long as you put them in the right places. Uh, so it was a rewarding process, and it was great to meet some of the subject matter experts that I interviewed for the book. But writing it was a journey in discipline, a journey in commitment for sure, and I think that's why traditional publishers look to people who are committed to see it through the end. Because I don't know about you, what your word count goal was, but mine was like 70,000. And I don't know that
Yeah, I think mine was 80. I don't know why I think they just picked that arbitrarily.
yeah, well, something of that number where I haven't written that much since college. And
Yeah.
so you have to remind yourself that, like, I signed up to write and see this through to the end. Also, I'm not alone because I had a good developmental editor that I could write a bit, send it to them. They give feedback, write some more, send it to them. So I just knew I had to cross the word count finish line, and they would tidy it, make it pretty, make all the pieces align. So the writing journey was a lot of it was on my shoulders, but I didn't feel like I was alone because I had the editing partners.
I love that.
Mhm.
Did you sell all of them in the first week it came out?
Man, there's no such thing as all. It's selling books is both a journey and a sprint, or sorry, a marathon and a sprint at the same time. But there's one author. Her name is Dr. Ruth Gothian.
Mhm.
She told me the best advice ever. She said, Joey, every day, treat every day like it's book launch day. And
Oh, wow.
that's how you keep the book top of mind with your audience, top of mind with conference planners. And so I always try at least once a week, I'm talking about my book in some capacity on LinkedIn or on social media elsewhere to help drive that engagement. But it did sell pretty well. We hit a bestseller list on one of those niche categories in Amazon, and
Mhm.
recently it won an award for a distinguished winner for this New York independent author list that the book was submitted for. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
There's
Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you. My first royalty statement came in, and
Hey!
yeah, it lets you see, how well your book sold in the first 3 months. And my book far exceeded in the first 3 months what the average book sells in its first year. So I always want to
Congratulations.
beat the
That's
median,
awesome.
right? Thank you. I always want to beat the median, and we did it. We did it.
I really love that for you, man, and, I'm probably over here holding up the beanie, and I don't know, I haven't gotten my numbers yet, so but
Just
we'll find out.
Just
Um,
keep pushing, man. Keep pushing.
yeah.
You are a phenomenal voice, and you've got a great speaking calendar. And I know that your voice is one of the ones that people really need to be paying attention to in our space. So I'm sure you'll do well. I'm sure you'll do well.
Well, one day I'll get on your level, Joey. So thank you for saying that.
Thanks, man.
But so you've made that transition from being in HR to writing about HR to now you analyze the industry of HR, and I've been trying a little bit, selfishly because one of the things that a lot of the practitioners who listen to my podcast talk about is where do we go in our career, and is it always just up? Like, does everybody have to become the CHRO? And one of the things that I'm trying to show is not everyone has to become the CHRO someday. There's a variety of career pathways if you decide to kind of go alternative pathways. And one of those is being an industry analyst.
Mhm.
And so I was hoping maybe you could talk about what it's like being an industry analyst, how you became one, and just what is that and what's the value it brings. I've talked to a few of them recently and probably more in the future, but I feel like everybody brings a different perspective to the table, and I'd love to hear yours.
No, for sure, for sure. And the way I try to describe the analyst community to those who aren't as aware, I often say it's like Baskin Robbins. Like there's 33 different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us cover buyer sentiment. Some of us cover one particular category exclusively. So maybe only TA, only payroll, only workforce management. And then, you asked me about how I got into it. So in January of 2025, my HR consulting firm acquired Aspect 43, which was founded by Sarah White. It's a phenomenal HR technology research firm that focuses on buyer sentiment and helping technology vendors understand why HR professionals buy your product or not. Whether it's right product, wrong timing, whether it's right product, but not so clear go to market strategy or not so clear go to market alignment. And so that's what we get to do. So now at Aspect 43 is the research division for Jumpstart HR. And the reason I love this as a career path, as a potential career path for HR professionals, is many of the leading voices in the HR technology community are technologists. And what I found about technologists, not all of them, but many, when they see a problem, it's the adage of if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate being an HR practitioner by trade and having that in my background, because when I look at how a vendor is trying to solve a problem, I can speak to their ability to solve the problem, but also the entire ecosystem in which it rests. And I think that brings a lot of clarity moments, especially this transformative time that we're in for HR and HR technology, where HRS platforms are diving deeper into other different verticals within the space, or we're seeing emerging trends and things that we hadn't seen before, like wellness technology. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to do a to release our survey on compliance technology, and it's like compliance technology used to be the HR professional checking off lists, right? But now there are
Yeah.
tools that monitor labor law changes, FLSA changes, international guidelines, and things that we have to pay attention to with respect to data privacy and what have you. Um, HR professionals bring a holistic view to the technology conversation in a way that people who have primarily built their career in technology and have only interfaced with HR in their company, they
Yeah.
don't understand, right? So I think it's a phenomenal field for an HR professional who's looking for what's next to maybe venture in. And I mean, I'd say maybe you don't have to start by acquisition, but you start by writing. Maybe what was your experience utilizing this platform? How does it compare with this other platform? What are some of the trends you're seeing in the space that you'd like to amplify and share or warn HR professionals about? You can get started with writing and see where you end up.
So how do you get the data for it? I'm assuming, are you sending out surveys? Like what is getting you the information to analyze about buyer behavior?
Yeah. Well, thanks to some of the partner networks that we have, we're available and able to reach not only HR practitioners but employees
Hmm.
at many of the organizations who are partners within our network, and so we're able to share surveys. But we identified that there's survey fatigue, right?
Hmm.
You can't just always give out gift cards. You can't just always say donate to the charity of your choice or the winning charity. So in this environment, you have to get creative. Um, one of the creative things that we're doing is I've launched a new podcast and launching a community around it. Uh,
Well, what's the name of it? Or is it a reveal?
yeah, this is a reveal. It's gonna be Joey's HR Lounge, and
Okay.
the reason why we're doing it that way is because the podcast will exist to share information, to have one-on-one conversations with HR leaders, and
Mhm.
keep these high level topics um, at a conversation level that anyone can understand and anyone can take practical next steps from. And then the community base is what we're hoping to gather some research insights and maybe spark one-on-one conversations with HR leaders who can we can say, tell us a little bit more what you mean about the frustration you had with customer service at that vendor,
Mhm.
all within a safe space. So, um, the cool thing is that it's not. It's a HR community for community. Sorry, HR community for HR that is not vendor specific, so
Mhm.
people can come and feel free to express their opinions about their experiences with technology, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their challenges, and from there we can get some rich insights from not just the HR professionals, but from their teams as well.
That's fascinating. So I'm thinking about like, we can't go a podcast without talking about AI and the effect that it's having on HR and HR professionals, especially their skills. What are some of the things that you've seen from your research, whether it to be into buying patterns or the technology or just your work as an HR person yourself, the impact that AI is having on HR at the moment?
Yeah, uh, and I live in a few worlds, so I'll talk about that. I'll start with the HR professional. Um, recently I gave a closing keynote at a local conference,
Hmm.
and I got there early. I always try to get early to a place and get a feel for the crowd and what topics are they talking about during the day. So maybe I can give kudos to the other speakers and reference some of it in my chats.
Hey, you're running it like a band. You're doing a sound check
That's
before
it.
the event. Yeah,
That's
I
it.
love
Yep.
it.
Sound check. Meet the fans so they don't storm out and or throw tomatoes at you. Like I want people to like me. Okay, so I gotta show up
Yeah.
early. Um, but I got in there early, and the topic at hand was active listening,
Hmm.
and it made me nervous. It made me very nervous because knowing what I know about what employees consider important, what CEOs and CFOs and CIOs and COOs consider important, um, I thought to myself, these HR professionals are taking time off of their workday to learn skills that hopefully will advance their career.
Hmm.
And the topic of the moment was active listening. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's not a bad topic in and of itself, but to be honest, I was a little disappointed because I was like, I have to tell these people the world that they actually live in, and it's a one where technology, and more specifically and directly AI, is disrupting your job. It's disrupting your team. um, there's a reality that will play out in the future where a CEO says, hey, I know our HR department is 10. How do we run this with these tools in 7 or these tools in 5? And it's not as cut and dry as that. But the reality is, like, your CEO isn't going to care if you're active listening. And also, the tools that exist make you a better listener and make you a better communicator. And so you just bypass the whole like need for, oh, is there more? Oh, tell me, what did you mean by that? What I heard you say is such as um to conflate all of this together, AI is disrupting HR professionals and our jobs and our teams at a speed that we aren't quite able to comprehend. Um, the releases that are happening with technology that is already in our space. I'm not talking about like new tools to go out and buy, but your payroll software, your recruiting software, your applicant tracking software. The features are going to maximize your ability to do things quickly. And so HR professionals have to understand the mechanics behind it, how to also show their value in the midst of these tools that do things more efficiently, and be able to have the confidence that says, "Yeah, I know this tool can do my job or portions of my job rather much faster than I can, but here are the things that I know it can't do yet, and here's why I'm valuable to the team." And I think that the masses of HR professionals are still living in that like soft skills as a strength world,
Mm.
when they need to be leaning more into access to technology and technology deployment as a strength. And so I think we're going to miss people who stay in the former and don't lean into the latter. But what I exist to do is to help more people join that
Yeah.
technology wave.
Well, and I don't know if you have this data. You got me thinking as you were talking about that. What is the buyer sentiment right now for HR folks for AI, or if you have any knowledge of it, people analytics, workforce planning, talent intelligence, all the stuff that I'm curious about. What is the buyer sentiment for that right now?
Yeah, I've got stats for you, man. Come on.
Okay.
One of our recent reports that we released through Aspect 43 said that 40% of HR professionals have no plan for AI integration in their current setup.
Whoa.
Now, that 40%, some of those are we're unaware, some of those are we're blissfully ignorant, and some of those are we're so afraid that we don't know how to take that next step. So when you think of this
Hmm.
large majority of people who are making decisions about workforce strategy for businesses that live in an artificial intelligence age, that's incredibly scary. So 40% are unaware of their AI strategy. The other thing that we're seeing is that HR is not the only decision maker when it comes to buying modern HR technology. So whether it be people analytics software, whether it be rolling from one payroll provider to another, um, more and more CFOs and CEOs are curious about these technologies that they're reading about in Bloomberg, or they're reading about in Forbes, or they're reading about in their trade publications. And so it's not HR's end all be all to say, "Yep, we're renewing another 5 years with this payroll company because we feel really strongly and comfortable with it." It's no, let's go out and find the best solution for our budget, for our digital transformation goals, the ones that connect to the other technologies that we have in the stack, and we need to go about this more intelligently. And so, a large portion of buyers and influencers within the space rest outside of the HR department. And so what that tells me for HR, again, going back to own your expertise, you've got to be able to understand the business case for these tools that are existing in your field. And you either guide your CEO and CFO on how to make those decisions, or they're going to guide for you. And I always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
I love that saying. Well, we're getting up near the end of 2025 right now. Any kind of look back on this year or any things that you're thinking, oh, this is something that we're going to see in 2026 in terms of where HR is headed that maybe, the regular normie out there isn't aware of?
Sure, sure. So I think the pendulum has swung from, at the start of the year, this was very much things had rebounded to being an employee or job seeker friendlier market, right? But I think
Hmm.
the pendulum has swung back to being in the employer's favor. And so, with that, I believe while these things are still important, I think there's going to be less of an emphasis um, on things like salary increases, bonuses, recognition, um, those pieces, unless you're able to tie them to the strategic goals of your business. The other thing is, I have been pleasantly impressed with, from a technology standpoint, more vendors honing in on their messaging, and it's moved from not just we have AI, it's cool, it's the thing of the future, but it's we have AI, here are the practical uses of it, and here are some case studies that we can show you of companies that have had real transformative change by adopting our products. Oh, and by the way, here's the roadmap of things that we're working on and how we believe it's going to have an impact on your business. So I've been pleasantly pleased with where vendors have been honing in on their messaging. As I look into 2026, we're in a place of kind of global geopolitical volleying, right? You get a tariff. No, you don't get a tariff. You know,
Everybody gets a
uh,
tariff.
yeah, everybody gets a tariff. No, wait, just kidding. We're not going to do tariffs. And so, on one end, you could think of that as only a political, like, that doesn't bother me kind of thing. But actually, for the HR professional, it's incredibly important. Um, if you are in a multinational workforce, you need to be paying attention to geopolitics. You also need to be thinking of how are the changing cost of goods and the changing cost of services impacting your employees' ability to buy goods, buy services. We also need to be looking at the future of healthcare and how the decisions that are being made for our politicians, how those costs may be expected to be either absorbed or passed on to employers or to employees. So there's a lot to keep HR up at night. Um, but I'd say tune into really smart people like you, and
Yeah, I've got some research coming on about that early
yeah,
next year. So
yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but that's fair.
Well,
That's
you'll
thanks.
come on my show, and we'll talk about the study. How about that?
Oh, this is how the sausage gets made of getting invited on podcasts, people. So this is what it looks like. So,
Yeah, man.
thank you for sharing that, Joey. Well, I mean, I see you at conferences all the time now. I'm surprised we didn't know each other for years, but it's like every few weeks I run into you somewhere. What's a good HR conference? Like, what's the conference that if you had to pay to be there yourself, which one would you go to? Like, what constitutes making a conference good?
Ooh, what constitutes making a conference good is a few things. One, is it in a place that I don't mind attending? Um, there
Yeah.
are certain locales that I just don't enjoy, and I'm like, I have a 48-hour limit in Vegas before I crash out. Okay, like I
Yeah.
got to get in, I got to get out. Um, so there are good conferences that happen in Vegas, but it's just not my favorite place. So
Yeah.
it's always better, I think, when you like where you are. Um, you also want to make sure that, like, does this conference um, propose to give me the personal and business goals that I'm looking for, because I'm investing my time, my money, and brain space to be at this
Mhm.
event. Um, so you want to make sure that it's going to help you tackle goals. Also, is it going to get you into the right network of people? You know, when I met Cole, we were at a dinner, and there's no way I would have met Cole unless I was in the right room for the right reasons, and we hit it off, and it's been great ever since. So, how will this conference impact your network? Um, so I would say, there are many great conferences. You made me choose one. I think one of the better ones that I had a really good experience at this year was WorkHuman. And
Okay.
what I appreciate about WorkHuman's conference is yes, it is a company. Yes, it's a company that sells stuff, right? So, full disclaimer there. But I really felt that the programming helped make HR professionals better, whether they use the WorkHuman software or products and services or not. Um, and it was very much, it felt kind of like it was like an anti-conference conference where of
Mm.
course there was programming and things, but even the way that their expo center was set up, it was really cool. You're not necessarily going from vendor to vendor to vendor to vendor feeling like you're walking through the mall with like those people that try to give you those eye creams, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't that experience. It was more like, oh, let's see what cool innovations are happening over there, or what's the history of employee engagement and experience within the U.S. And then there was like a cool podcast lounge. There was a bookstore. Um, so
Well, you'll be at both of those next year.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so again, I could roll off a long list of cool
Yeah.
ones, but if I had to spend my money on one, it would.
No, Misha and Martin's a friend. She's at WorkHuman, and she presented recently at the SIPE Leading Edge Consortium that I co-chaired. So that's really cool that you like that one. I haven't been before, but that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Come on next year.
yeah. Well, if I get the invite, we'll see.
Cool.
Well, you want to join me in Cole's Corner?
Let's do it.
Welcome to Cole's Corner. All right, let's start out with some rapid fire.
Cool.
If you weren't in HR and now an industry analyst, what would you have done with your career? I think you kind of touched on this earlier, but I'd love to dig into it a little bit.
Yeah, so I thought I was going to be a sports medicine doctor, and
Yeah.
I realized I didn't want to tape up athletes for the rest of my life, but I
Hmm.
also met organic chemistry, and I was like, if I have to do this on higher levels just to get to that, I was like, nah, there's no way I have the desire to reach this end goal and go through all of that. So it would have been a sports medicine doctor, but honestly, if like money isn't an issue or anything like that, I'd honestly love to be like just either a librarian or like an Uber driver because I like I like driving and I like talking to
Yeah.
people, but I also love books, and to be the book concierge for people who want to like learn new things or go down new rabbit trails of science fiction or whatever. I'd love to be a guide for folks. So that's probably what I would be doing if I weren't doing this.
I love that. I love that answer. I mean, it's just like you know yourself, and I think that that's like a famous philosophy, like know thyself first or something like that. So that's amazing.
Well, what about
Um,
you though? What would you do if you weren't Cole, Mr. People Analytics? What would you be?
Hey, I'd go back and be your first job. I would be in a band,
Nice.
going around traveling. I think it'd be fun to be in the band. I think it's fun to be like in the business of the music industry too. I think that would be cool if it were like still booming like it was in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be a lot of fun. But yeah. Well, what's the place you've never been to that you most like to go and why?
Oh man. Um, I would say domestically, some of the national parks.
Mm,
So southern Utah, Arizona area, even like the Everglades in Florida. Uh,
yeah.
I'm a big fan of nature, and just being in places where there's zero light pollution, seeing what nature made, and just being out in places like that are very inspiring. So somewhere out in nature that's been like untouched by human civilization is where I want to be domestically, and then I think internationally, more and more, a lot of work that we do is happening in places like Dubai and UAE, and
Mhm.
so would love to pop over there and experience the culture and do some business. So um, that's where I'd go.
Yeah, every so often, probably once every 4 or 5 months, I'll get an email from a conference that's in like Dubai,
Mhm.
and it'd be like, "Hey, we want you to come over here and do this and that," and and it's always just sketchy enough that I'm like, I'm not sure if you're trying to steal my identity. Like, I want to go, I want to do it, but I'm also like, am I going to regret responding to this? So, like, I don't know. So maybe I'll get a less sketchy one in the future, but I think that would be a fantastic place to go.
Well, Cole, as long as you're not on, some state watch list, I think you're, I think you're good.
Yeah. Why do you do what you do?
Oh man, I do what I do. It's simple. I have a mission statement that I live by, and
Hmm.
it's to help more people be excited about Monday than they are about Friday.
Oh
And
wow,
so I do what I
I
do.
love.
Thank you.
How did you come to that?
Um, you know, oddly enough, before I even got into the HR field, I studied kinesiology in undergrad, so
Hmm.
that was the whole sports medicine track, right? Like I wasn't like some criminal justice major who was like, oh, I want to go to sports medicine one day. I was really all the way into human movement. Um, so my research paper was on stress and
Hmm.
cortisol and its impact of us at our jobs. Um, so I've always had this desire in me to uh, help people love their jobs. I just didn't realize that from a sports medicine standpoint, I wanted to train athletes so that they can win. But now I get to train corporate athletes so that they can win. And it looks different, right? In this environment, it is creating consulting strategies that CEOs buy in and our consulting team gets to deploy and have a one-to-one improvement of like strategy and business. And now with our acquisition of Aspect 43, it's taking data-driven insights and turning those into recommendations for technologists to create tools that help people love their jobs. And so, you know, I had just peeled the layer back. It all started of like, oh, I want to help people, okay,
Yeah.
but like go down a layer. Like, why do I want to help people? Well, I want to help people because we're stressed out. Why are people stressed out? We're stressed out because we go to jobs that we don't like. And why do people go to jobs that they don't like? Well, it's because they have to pay bills and they have to have a life for their family, so on and so forth. So I was like, well, if I can get to the deepest layer of the onion of like why I want to be helpful, it's ultimately because we spend so much time at work that there's a happy medium of like the mental stress that we should have at work, and then the fair and equitable compensation that we should have at work, and the intrinsic value that we receive from work, because we're all giving 8+ hours a day, 40+ hours a week to advance the organization. Is there a way where the organizations can advance us in as mutually a redeeming way as possible? So that's why I live by that mantra. And so everything that I do or that I'm a part of, I have to ask myself, does it help move the needle in that area? And so
Yeah.
that's why I do what I do.
I love that. I really like it.
Mm,
All right, I got one big question for you.
cool.
So you wrote the book on how to make an impact on organizations using HR. What is the best way to make an impact? And what do you know about making an impact using HR that no one else knows about or that you're most hesitant to share?
Oh, you want me to share my secrets, huh? I'd say the most impactful way you can make a difference as an HR professional is to be trustworthy. And that shows up in many different ways. Trustworthy to the CEO is like,
But what does it mean, Joey? Because like this is like you going to that conference and hearing people talk about active listening.
yeah,
When you tell me it's be trustworthy,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, but what's the secret insight there?
yeah. No, no, I appreciate that because you want to be the advisor. You want to have the ear of the CEO that says, hey, I'm laser focused on this vision and this is how I want to get there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you are the HR professional, the senior most HR professional in the organization, and you cannot influence that CEO's perspective, then you are not living at the highest level, like the pinnacle of being an
Yeah.
HR. And so the way that you arrive at that pinnacle is being trustworthy. So that means, there may be some behind closed doors conversations that you're privy to that you have to like walk out of it, you know, protecting the best interest of the CEO while also not being afraid to speak up and say, hey, here's why we should drive this way versus that way. Here's the data that supports going this way versus that way. So trustworthy is an umbrella, but it's a mutual exchange of like the CEO can trust that you understand their motives, you understand the direction you want to take the business that they want to take the business in, and you understand why that's important to them and to the shareholders and so on and so forth. But it's also, minimizing whether it's not protecting the
Just say it. I see you thinking about it. Just
yeah.
say what you want to say. It's just me and you talking. It's just nobody's
Me,
listening.
you, and the
Yeah.
millions of listeners, right?
Yeah.
I think that we lose our credibility as HR professionals when we're so gung ho about things that don't ultimately matter to the business. Like the hills that we often choose to die on as HR professionals
Very silly
are
hills.
very silly hills.
Yeah.
And so it's having the composure to know, is this a hill that I should die on? Is this drama that I need to involve myself in? Um, so I'd say that's a part of being trustworthy is maintaining your professional composure and not dying on stupid hills.
Yeah. I could probably take some wisdom from that recently. Uh, no, I love it. All right. Well, let's do some. What am I reading? By the way, as I get into this, I don't know. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother.
Okay, so you have a sibling, so this will resonate with you.
Yeah.
Um, in the past, like I've had a few of our previous guests tempt us to talk about research about kind of birth order
Hmm.
and do siblings kind of shape, your experience and that type of thing. And I've been reticent to do so because previous research on the topic basically shows that there's little or no effect. However, there's been this recent study that came out um, of 700,000 adults
Hmm.
and asking them to take what's called the Hexaco personality model, which is essentially the big five with honesty, humility added into it.
Hmm.
And what they found is that they're contrary to prior research, that birth order actually does have an impact on your adult personality.
Hmm.
So I'll hit a few of the key findings here real quick, and then I'll let you jump in. But this was by Ashton et al. In 2024. On the honesty, humility, and agreeableness, the study found that individuals from larger families scored higher on these traits. And middleborns, as a middleborn myself, this makes a lot of sense. Middleborns had the highest scores on these two dimensions, followed by lastborns, firstborns, and only children. And then the impact of sibship size. So this is actually the number of siblings you have. If you have a sibship score of 1, that means you're an only child. I
Hmm.
know that gets a little confusing, but a sibship score of 2 means you have one sibling. Um, the differences in honesty, humility, and agreeableness were most pronounced when comparing individuals from families with one child to those with 6 or more children. Essentially, if you are an only child or one child, you your honesty humility score is substantially lower than if you have 6 or more children, and it goes up in a linear fashion as you add children. So the honesty humility score goes up the more children there are.
Hmm.
And then on openness to experience, they found that only children and firstborns scored higher on openness to experience than middle or lastborns,
Hmm.
which is consistent with some prior research. And so there's a few findings here. They've got some charts. You can see kind of honesty, humility as the sibship score goes up. That there's a relationship there. You can see openness to experience is higher for those with
Yep.
less siblings. There seems to be a small relationship with extroversion, and then you'll see agreeableness goes up as well as you add siblings. But as they said earlier, that this is one of those things that middle children tend to struggle with.
Mhm.
So, what did you think about this one when you had a chance to look through it, or did you have a chance to look through it?
I did, and it's so interesting because I grew up with an older brother, and
Hmm.
my wife is the only child. And now that we have two daughters that are 2 years apart, there are things that I understand about their personalities and like how they interact with each other that blows my wife's mind. Like on one hand, they could be fighting over markers, and then the next moment they're holding hands watching Netflix. And I was like, you know, this is what it's like being with a sibling. It's a world that you didn't understand until now. So I would say anyone who doesn't understand birth order and sibling size and the influence it has on you as an adult has never either had siblings or they've never had kids, because absolutely I can look at the traits that my kids have now, and I can tell you who they'll be as an adult. And some of that is nature, but some of it is also the nurture piece of how we respond to children. So for example, when I was growing up, my older brother was like the experiment child, right? Like
Hmm.
my parents were new to this for the very first time. So that makes me understand why the first siblings are open to experiences,
Yeah,
because they were the lab rat, right?
yeah.
And
They
then
tried everything out for the first time.
yes, every from like do we give this child an expensive gift to like, as a child, am I going to go and try things that may get me in trouble, right? Like I always knew I could look to my brother and say, oh, if he got in trouble for that, I'm not going to do that. Or if if that was a bad decision, I'll try to learn from that. Which makes me also think about the openness to experience is like,
Hmm.
as that second sibling, I'm more inclined to say, well, let me not learn from my own mistakes or my own lessons. Let me see what's happened for others. So I'm more cautious and conservative when it comes to like trying new things.
I
Um,
think you covered a lot of really good Grant. I mean that is exactly what I was hoping we would talk about here.
yeah.
I'm curious. You brought up earlier in the conversation. We talked about geopolitics, and I've got some research coming out next year about that, as well as labor shortages. And a part of that research is talking about birth rates decreasing.
Yep.
And so, what that means is a lot more people are only having one child or no children, but
Yep.
no children don't have a personality. So, one child does have a personality. And one of the interesting things I see in this research is that if you're an only child, you're much more likely to be lower on honesty, humility, much likely to be lower on agreeableness, and much higher on openness to experience.
Mhm.
And I wonder, as society kind of progresses and we have more and more people that are only children, what does that do to things like societal trust? If honesty, humility, and agreeableness are lower, but people are wildly open to experiences, it seems like you're going to have a lot more, and we're seeing it already, a lot more isolation,
Mhm.
but also a lot of seeking of novelty. And so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, to your point about seeing that play out now, um, this wasn't our research, but I read somewhere that the top two reasons why people use ChatGPT is for connection and counsel.
Yeah.
And so, what we're seeing is people trusting algorithms more than they trust a social community. And you have to ask yourself, like, how do we get there, right? Like, are we not vulnerable enough to share with one another? Uh,
Hmm.
were we not vulnerable enough to see our parents as mentors or guides? or religious figures or teachers or supervisors. Um, so yeah, it's super interesting. I I worry about the world that my kids will be growing into, but you bring up some good points.
Yeah. No. Well, here's another slightly negative one. We'll go into. This is a recent article called by Bradley Wilson called "Are We Witnessing the Disenfranchisement of the White Collar Worker?"
Hmm.
And so one of the things he talks about is if you look at kind of the macro data on workers, it's actually frontline workers for one of the first times in a long time are starting to see higher levels of engagement
Hmm.
across the base of work. But the divergence is happening with white collar workers, which are seeing declines in these double digit drops in confidence in senior leadership, feeling valued and believing their opinions matter.
Hmm.
And he goes into a few of the possible drivers behind this decline. Managers seem to be much more under pressure, spans of control are increasing. The retreat from the flexibility of work that we saw during COVID,
Hmm.
uncertainty about technology, specifically thinking about generative AI, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, shifts in inclusion and belonging, recognition gaps, layoff anxiety, and smaller teams. And this is having a human impact on the workforce. And he gives some advice about what leaders can do to improve this. But are you seeing this in the data that you're experiencing, and what impact do you think the disenfranchisement of white collar workers is having right now, Joey?
Hmm. Well, one thing that's on our research target for next year is rewards and recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So ask me this question in like 8 months, and I'll have a research based answer from our studies. But I think to go back to the technology that's increasing, I think more and more frontline workers understand that their jobs are relatively secure because we've had self checkout for like the last 5 years, and I still hate it. Right? I
Yeah,
always prefer to go to a person.
I
Um,
always tell my wife, like, when is the store going to cut me a check for doing the work?
Listen, and then they'll have the nerve to say, "Do you want to donate to charity?"
Yeah,
I'm like, first of all, I have my own charities that I donate to. Second of all, you hired me to check out my own bags, and I have to
yeah,
go
unpaid
to
labor.
charity and give a tip, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that frontline workers understand to many degrees that their jobs are secure, if not in the company that they work for, the many others that are in their space. So, just as an example, if you work for a hotel chain and you felt unsatisfied with your work, you can go work for another hotel chain or maybe a bank branch. Bank branch wants to institute more drive through automated tellers. You can probably go around to another bank branch and have a rewarding career. Uh, but with the changing of technology, going from being able to only execute tasks to now the agentic world in which we're in, where uh, the AI is able to string tasks along to complete things in succession. That's where I think the mid-level white collar worker is nervous because we used to think, AI is just here to get rid of the toll worker, the bank teller, and the, fast food clerk. But now it's like the marketing coordinator or
Yeah.
the HR assistant or the even the audit professional, right? Uh,
Yeah.
um, Technology is advancing in ways that forces HR professionals to reimagine our workforce planning,
Hmm.
but also it's getting the attention of CEOs who can say, "Oh, we can augment our workforce and realize specific gains." And I don't have to worry about them unionizing. I don't have to worry about overtime
Yeah.
pay. I just have to worry about data costs or energy costs, which that's a topic for another time. But
Sure.
but yeah, I see this world that we're living in, where white collar workers are scared, um, and I think rightfully so. But you should be scared. If you are scared, you should be informed, because when you're informed, you can know how to navigate moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in zero sum thinking. So just because, blue collar workers are doing better and white collar workers are doing worse, that like there's some kind of like karmic justice in that. But I
Yep.
will say for a long time, I mean, decades and decades, blue collar workers were treated like garbage.
Yep.
Like they were not treated well.
Hmm.
And so I think that this is probably a nice respite as a society that they're getting kind of a moment to at least say, hey, you know what, we matter too.
Hmm.
I mean, I kept thinking about this a lot during COVID when there were so many articles coming out about like flexible work and how this is so great that everybody gets flexible work. And I always thought, like, what about blue collar workers? Do they
Well,
get flexible work?
80% of our workforce is
Yeah.
deskless. So,
And so much of the work that is done acts like white collar workers are the only workers that exist.
mhm.
And frankly, that offends me. And
It's a
so I try
bubble.
not, yeah.
It's
And
a
the
silo.
people are people.
Silo.
Yeah. And so like everything is written about, well, what's going on in San Francisco or New York, or what's going on, with the top, tech workers. And it's like that's the entire, and that's like a fraction of the workforce.
Hmm.
And it's like saying these are the people who matter and these are the people who don't matter.
Hmm.
And so maybe it's time for a little comeuppance. I don't know. That's sort of how I look at it a little bit. But yeah, like I do think a lot of this comes down to is finally the eye of Sauron of automation, which is shown for 30 years on blue collar workers, is now shining on white collar workers. And I think it's our time to be resilient and adjust. I mean, I'm a white collar worker.
Yeah.
I want to be an early adopter to all these technologies rather than saying, it's going to just impact me because I'm unwilling to change.
Yeah. Well, and you probably saw the news where there was one consulting firm that I think they had to give like $440,000 back to a government they were consulting
Yeah.
for,
Yep.
because they used AI, it hallucinated, and they must have had a money back guarantee. Um,
Well, let's use that as a transition point because that's actually the next article we've got.
oh, okay, all right, cool, 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 cool.
Because it's not about the consulting firm, but it's about hallucinating. And this is some recent research from OpenAI and Georgia Tech
Mhm.
published a study in September saying AI does not hallucinate, it bluffs.
Okay.
And the reason for why this bluffing occurs is simple: it was taught to do so. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of reinforcement learning, what all these AI models are trained on is they get reinforced with plus points, I guess you could call it, for when they give a good answer, and neutral points for a decent answer, and then minus points for a bad answer.
Hmm.
And one of the things that they've baked into the reinforcement learning algorithms for making these things better is people don't like it if a model says, I don't know.
Hmm.
And that gets 0 points in the reinforcement learning algorithm. But when it guesses, and if a lot of times it gets lucky, it gets rewarded for that.
Hmm.
So a guess is essentially a bluff. And essentially what these authors are saying from OpenAI and Georgia Tech is that we are reinforcing these models to hallucinate, i.e., bluff, because that's what people want
Hmm.
in the results. So if we're ever complaining that AI is giving wrong information, it's our own fault because we are the ones who are liking the results that it's producing rather than we should, if we really wanted better results, we would reward it for saying, I don't know, rather than punishing it. So, what did you think about this one, especially within the context of what you were just sharing about that consulting firm?
Yeah, yeah, because it was the consulting firm a couple weeks ago, but it was the attorney who went to trial with
Mhm.
erroneous case study, months ago. And quite frankly, it could be any industry, any reason, tomorrow. Um, I, th- I think that, first of all, I don't have as much knowledge in the field as the person writing it, so I'm not going to
Sure.
question how they derived at what they derived at. But what I will say is, I don't know that it's as much we want the wrong answer as we don't know. I don't know that it's going to sound weird. Someone try to slow down and do it. Um,
We don't
we,
know that it's the wrong answer, and
yes,
therefore we think it's right, and therefore we reward it.
yes, exactly that. Well said. So,
I thought the same thing, and that's why I was like, it came to my mind
and
immediately. Is like,
yeah,
I think because I mean, if OpenAI is one of the authors of this, they're trying to again, take the burden of blame off of themselves
right.
and put it on to well, it's just the users. It's the users' fault. And I was like, yeah, but the users think that you're giving them correct information and therefore trusting that what you provided is actually accurate. And a lot of times it sounds awesome.
Hmm.
So obviously they're going to be like, yeah, reward this. This is a great answer.
Yeah.
Like I love this answer, especially if it's sycophantic and tells you what you want to hear anyway.
Yep.
Even better, give it 2+ points, right? And
That's right.
the reality is because there's no like side by side with accuracy versus what it provided, like actual information and facts versus what the answer it provided. There's no way to assess that it was actually wrong, and so the only thing that gets downranked is I don't know.
Right. Right. And thinking about the behavior of the person using the tool, you know, it's replacing the search engines, right? So
Yeah.
people are looking for something that's a quick but thorough answer that helps shape their thinking on something they don't know about, right? Like people aren't going in there and saying, "Hey, what's 2 plus 2?" Because they already know that answer. And if they are going in for a math problem, it's probably, their child's homework and they want to figure out how to solve it. And you always ask it, like, show me your steps. But if it's like, hey, I need you to uh, prepare a memo with case law about X that addresses this thing, um, you don't know that you're getting incorrect information unless you're
Mhm.
also taking that next step to go back in and maybe highlight whatever case it referenced, and then cross-reference another source to say, does this show up in the database? And if it doesn't, you should be alarmed. So I think that there is the user error is not in what comes out, it's in our inability or lack of diligence in scrutinizing what does come out,
Yeah.
which is like that extra step that you have to take.
Well, and it's like the whole point of using this is to save time.
Hmm.
If now you're going to use it and now you have to do double the work because you used it and you have to go do your own research, it's like this is an anti-productive task.
Yep.
Right. So, Joey, you've been fantastic, man. I got to say this. Like, usually when I get somebody to come on the podcast, they're like, all right, I'll do it. And you were so excited. And so I was like, this is going to be awesome. Joey's
Yeah,
excited to be here. Finally.
of course.
So somebody
Oh
doesn't feel
man,
like
this
they're
is
doing me a favor.
no,
So
it was fun, and I hope that the audience got some good stuff from it. Maybe some education, maybe some inspiration, maybe some gut checks. But Cole, I could chat with you forever. So looking forward
absolutely.
to next time we'll see each other out and about.
Yep.
And yeah,
All right. Well, if you haven't already, go check out Joey's book, The Power of HR, his new Joey's HR Lounge, both the podcast and the group, the community that he's building, and check out his research as an industry analyst. But you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Colin Scott, and today's guest, Joey Price. Thanks for joining me, Joey.
thanks, Cole. See you later.